Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be reviewing one of my most anticipated movies of the year, SuperGirl, starring Amelia Alcock and Jason Momoa. The plot is Kara Zor-El, aka SuperGirl, joins forces with an unlikely companion on an interstellar journey of vengeance and justice when an unexpected anniversary strikes too close to home. So, before I even saw this movie, I saw all of the negative reviews coming out on Letterboxd from pretty much every well-known movie reviewer known to man. And so, it was a long list of nitpicks and how it's not true to the Woman of Tomorrow comic that it's based on. So, I was like, I need to see this now. As you all know, I'm going to give an honest review, and I try to find the most positive things about a movie, even if it's very, very bad. Or I was going to love a movie because there are lots of comic book movies that don't hit with the general public that I love, right? Like Thor: Love and Thunder and stuff like that, right? So I was like, okay, what way am I going to fall on this sword? I think that this movie is fine. This movie is... I was watching the first like 20 to 30 minutes and I was like, okay, this hasn't really hooked me yet. This is where we're going. And then when it got to a certain point, I was like, oh, this is what we're doing? I'm in. And then it stayed that way for a decent amount of time, and then it just got to a point where like it was going like this. It was going like good thing, like slow, good thing, slow, good thing, slow. So I was like, okay. But I will say this. I think the thing with this movie is that because this movie is based on the Woman Tomorrow comic, like, and when James Gunn announced his slate of DC movies, he was like, look, we're going to be adapting the Woman Tomorrow storyline. Everyone was like, oh, we need to read this comic book to see if it's an actual true adaptation of the comic. And I think that's what kind of got a lot of the people that that are willing to read the comic. I think that's where it... I think as soon as I saw everyone saying that, I'm like, you're not gonna like the movie, obviously, because like, yes, it's fine when you want to read it to get familiar with the story, but even then, you're doing yourself a disservice, because like, I'm going in as a comic book fan, as a comic book movie fan, right? So I'm going in totally blank. I'm just going like, I hope I get a kick-ass Supergirl movie. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like everyone was like, oh, let's read the comic and judge it by the comic standards. And it's like, no, you should not do that. You should do it based on the movie standpoint, not on the comic standpoint. And a decent amount of people did not read the comic, just went into it blank. But I think that most of the hate is when you get the people going like, oh, it's not true to the Woman Tomorrow comic that it's adapting. And I think that where the movie fails in a decent chunk of it is the fact that it fails in adapting that storyline. But I also think that people were expecting a Superman kind of movie. Bright colours, like, oh my god, we're watching a Supergirl movie. Or kind of like the show. I love the CW show with Melissa. Melissa's my Supergirl. And that's kind of what I expect out of a Supergirl. But I knew that from Superman, and the way that this movie has been marketed, was that we're getting a completely different version of Supergirl. We're getting all of the fun aspects like stripped away. We're getting a sad, depressed Supergirl. We're getting basically almost like a Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, a Buzz in Lightyear, a Indiana Jones in Dial of Destiny, like that kind of storyline. Obviously, people will probably like it more than those, especially since people will probably like Supergirl more than Lightyear and Dial of Destiny. But I can see what they were doing, because we got that whole explanation at the end of Superman where she goes, "Oh, where's my dog?" And Superman even describes to Ford, but he's really telling the audience that she goes off planet where Red Sun is, so then she can get drunk all the time. So I knew what we were getting into with this movie. So this movie felt very Guardians of the Galaxy, but not in a good way. There were times in this movie where it felt kind of slow at times, but once the action started kicking, I was like, okay, this movie is really shining right now. This movie kind of goes in dips and waves for me, where it's like, oh, this is pretty good, oh, it's slow, pretty good, slow, pretty good, slow. Now, I will say, I love the flashbacks to Krypton. I think the Krypton flashbacks were great. I think that does a really good job at showing, like, more depth to Kara and what it was like before Clark got sent off to Earth. I think that was great. Ruthie in this movie did not work for me in this movie. She is one of those characters that kind of took a lot of screen time away from Supergirl. Even not Supergirl, even just Kara. Because this movie should have just been called Ruthie and Supergirl. Because Ruthie's character plays a huge role in this movie. I think the music is really good in this movie. It's a very Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. Which I actually didn't mind this movie. There were even times where, like, my friend was rocking out to the soundtrack, because, like, there were decent amount of songs in there that he knew, so he really liked a decent amount of the songs in the soundtrack. I want to talk about Millie Alcock. Like, as a fellow Australian myself, I was excited to see a Australian play a superhero in their own movie. Because, to my knowledge, DC-wise, like, we get, like, Chris Hemsworth and Eric Banner and Hugh Jackman in Marvel, but, like, DC, I could be wrong, but my mind only goes to Nicole Kidman. Which, right, so, and she's only in, like, actually, you know what, no, The Dark Knight. So, technically you got three now with Millie. You got Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, and you've got Nicole Kidman in Batman Forever, and the two Aquaman movies to the DCEU. So I was excited to see Millie as Supergirl. She was great in this movie. I thought that she was great. She was so good in this movie. I actually really liked her. I think that going into, I think her scenes with a character that we've already got introduced to in the previous movie last year, I just don't necessarily want to. I think that might be a spoiler thing. I know that he's in some of the trailers, but there's not, like, a lot of his scenes in the trailer, so I want to keep it a secret. But if you're picking up on what I'm trying to say, you know who I'm talking about. So there's a decent amount of scenes with him that, like, plant the seeds for the future of the DCU. And we know that she's going to show up in Man Tomorrow, so that gets me excited for that. I think that was great. I think that she was great. Her relationship with Crypto was great. Yeah. And also, Jason Momoa. He was chewing the scenery as Lobo in this movie. The fact that he got cast as Aquaman in the DCU, and he made Aquaman cool to everyone. And then James Gunn was like, yeah, no, we're gonna make you Lobo. He was so good in this movie. He was chewing the scenery. I'm surprised that, like, he wanted to be Lobo since Batman vs. Superman. And it's like, even he was like, Aquaman, you're gonna give me the lame superhero that talks to fish? So it's like, actually seeing him in this movie with, like, the crazy Lobo makeup and hair, you're like, this is going to be the best Lobo that we've ever gone. And he was so much fun in this movie. The fact that the guy that I think is a bit of a spoiler got more building in the opening credits than Jason Momoa did, that shocks me, because Lobo is in this movie more than the other guy. If you guys have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I think that this movie is not as bad as people think, but it's also one of those things where it's like, it's not as great as Superman. It's not as good as Peacemaker. It's not as good as, like, to me, The Flash. To me, Birds of Prey. To me, Shazam 1 and 2. Like, there are tons of DC and DCEU movies that I would put over this movie. But I think that this movie was a decent entry. Like, I think that this was... I'm going to give Supergirl 3 out of 5 stars. I don't think that this movie is as bad as everyone thinks. But it's also not as good as, like, Superman or, like, a decent amount to me, the DCEU movies to me. But yeah, so, guys, please, I will be, hopefully, be recording a tier list of Toy Story characters. I'll be doing that. I'll air that after this. And then whatever I do next, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon.